The world we live in faces large challenges, challenges that are existential for humanity in need of solutions. In order to develop these solutions, we need radical interdependence, entrepreneurship, leadership and passion. Bringing leaders together in an action-oriented community is essential. B for Good Leaders is building a global cooperative community in which entrepreneurship works together. Every month, we design a leadership dialogue in which you can learn and interact with influential leaders. Welcome to this month's edition of the B for Good Dialogue.
Good afternoon and welcome to the 7th series in our Leaders Dialogue. My name is Leen Zevenbergen and I'm co-founder of B for Good Leaders. I'm here together with Ankie van Wersch. She is the CEO of Powered by NVU. Welcome, Ankie.
Thank you.
Welcome and nice to have you. Ankie is here because the co-host that we normally have, Francine Lemos, is in Brazil. But we also have at this table Marcello Palazzi, who is my co-founder, and he will perform today as a very enthusiastic sidekick, asking questions to all the people that we have invited to be in this Leaders Dialogue. Today, as a faraway co-host, we have Francine Lemos, because Francine at the moment is in Monterrey, in Mexico, at a conference that is being hosted by Sistema B for all the B Corps from mainly Latin America. So, Francine, how are you doing there?
Hello, everyone. Very good to speak from Monterrey. I'm going to show you, we are in the University of Monterrey. Here is still is the morning, so you can see everyone is just arriving. Everyone is so committed. Today we are going to speak about B Corps, about the collective impact and how can we change and build a new economy together. It's one of the most important and most relevant meetings, gatherings that we have at Sistema B. Sistema B is the B Lab partner. And we are here to discuss the future, the present, and how we move forward together. It's so good to be with you, and I'll connect later with a guest that we have to discuss corporate activism.
And what maybe you, Francine, you can tell us. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how many people do we have there? Is there a main theme of the event at Monterrey?
Yes, of course. We are expected to have 1,500 people here from all over, especially from Latin America, but we have guests from all over the world as well. I had the chance to connect with them. And the theme of the encounter is how can we together collectively shift the economy? So it's the power of collective.
Okay, we speak to you later, Francine, when you interview one of your guests. Thank you, bye-bye.
Hope to see you all soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And in the upcoming half hour, we will have the opportunity to discuss and understand and explore the theme corporate activism. And we are not doing that alone, of course, with the three of us, but we have some very special guests here that we are very proud to have. We have Joe Kenner, who is the president of and CEO of Greyston Bakeries. I see that Joe is on the screen and he's here live. I'm very happy about that, Joe, that you finally made it. So happy to have you. We have Charmian Love, who is one of the, I would say, most active persons when you talk about corporate activism. She's Global Director of Advocacy at Natura. And then we have, we are also very proud to have him, Raki Ap, who is the spokesperson of Extinction Rebellion in the Netherlands. And we are very happy to have you here. And we are delighted to have all of you, because the more active you are in this discussion, the more we appreciate it. So, quickly, why are we doing this? We are doing this Leaders Dialogue because the world is going through tremendous changes. and we want to build a new economy together, as it was also said by Francine. We need systemic change and we need courageous leaders. And we believe at Be for Good Leaders that entrepreneurs can be and will be the change makers of this new economy if they can unite their forces and creativity. Then industries can really change a flourishing world. So the goal of us is in these leader dialogues is to bring the leaders together and to talk about the core challenges. And in that way, we are building a close-knit group of truly committed business leaders that can collectively shift markets. So that is why we have those dialogues every 2 months now. So before we start, we would like to take a quick look at the declaration that was created in Rome by 20 very young people, harvesters, who ran around and together with all of us in Rome created a declaration. So let's have a look at that.
Be for Good Leaders Declaration. As Be for Good Leaders, we commit to reframe the meaning of leadership by 1. Embracing radical interdependence, the fundamental principle governing life on Earth, as the golden rule for decision-making, leading to a regenerative impact. 2. Considering at least the next generation of humans in every business decision. 3. Measuring what matters to integrate systemic value creation into our definition of profit. 4. Challenging extractive economic models and taking a stand for the common good. 5. Mobilizing finance as a catalyst to transform the business perspective from short-termism to long-term shared value creation. We commit to guiding our companies and organizations to create a purpose-driven model that creates value for all. Through this joint leadership statement, we lay the foundation for collective actions and alliances, clearing the path for a new, regenerative economy.
Wow, that's quite some declaration. Marcello, what is actually the status of it right now?
The status is that we have now 2,060 people who have signed the declaration. And we've created, of course, a cooperative, because the point of the declaration is to take action. So these are very good words, but what counts is the action. And I think now we've been harvesting some of the action. We are bringing together some of the actions. The next gathering we will have in November, and online continuously. So we have seen a proliferation of leaders doing things, joint ventures, investments, and I will say a little bit later on. So the point is make it real, make the declaration actually work in practice.
That sounds like a great, great ambition. So what is next on your plan?
Well, the next, which we already announced in Amsterdam at the summit, and we've been working the last 5 or 6 months on, is to create a cooperative. So we launch a cooperative. The whole idea is that we have amazing networks around the world. I've counted 450 networks of people, say, like us, who want to change the economy, but we don't have the collective power to really go after the big agenda. And so whether it is Washington, New York, Brussels, or the larger corporation, we want to be able to influence them. So this is why the cooperative was created. Secondly, we didn't want another traditional platform where a few people get very rich and it's controlled by a top-down. This has to be a decentralized structure, because we talk about decentralized leadership. So everyone co-owns and in a way co-governs the cooperative. So this is where we are. We've been kind of nominating members, and we are going all the way to 100,000 members in the next few years.
One for all and all for one, Marcello.
One for all and all for one.
Sounds like the Musketeers.
It sounds like the Musketeers. And
and with that, I would like to introduce again Anki. Anki is the co-host of today.
The third Musketeer for today.
The third Musketeer at the table. She is co-CEO, or she was actually co-founder of NVU, which is a B Corp, which she founded together with Michiel Elig. And she worked there between 2017 and 2023, and now you have set up the power of NVU. Anki also founded the Tika Foundation, which works to improve the lives of children in Nepal, and She is the chairperson of the supervisory board of CIMAVI, which is a foundation supporting women across the globe. So I'm very happy that you're here, Anki. So why don't you introduce our first part of this Leaders Dialogue.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm looking forward to this conversation. So our first topic is corporate purpose. It is a buzzword. We hear it a lot, but what does it actually entitle? Let's take a look at this video because it will explain a little bit more about it.
The difference between purpose and corporate responsibility are really relatively big. Purpose is your North Star. It's the motivational force, that's the why the company is in existence. It's the humanity that we bring to products and services. Corporate responsibility is incredibly important to an organization, but it's typically programs and tools that individuals engage in from time to time, where purpose is something that happens on a daily basis. It's what brings meaning and fulfillment to work throughout the entire day and beyond.
The goal is not just to sell people who need what you have. The goal is to sell to people who believe what you believe. The goal is not just to hire people who need a job. It's to hire people who believe what you believe.
Instead of going public, you could say we're going purpose, Chenard wrote in a public letter. Instead of extracting value from nature and transforming it into wealth for investors, we'll use the wealth Patagonia creates to protect the source of all wealth.
We are Natura & Co, 4 brands united in our commitment to life. To not just recycle, but regenerate. Because when we act as one, we act for us all. This is our commitment to life.
I really think we need to focus on the fact that purpose can drive revenue. It drives innovation, it drives creativity, and it drives reputation. So it really is not at odds with making money. And in fact, a purpose-driven organization is actually more profitable than one that doesn't have people galvanized behind one individual North Star.
Yes, and let's start with a real example of a business with purpose. I'm very proud to introduce you Greyston and its CEO, Joe Kenner. Joe has been the CEO for a while now, and he is also one of the 40 most impactful leaders in 2023. And we're going to talk about his organization and about his purpose. But before we do so, Joe, I would like to show a short video of Greyston.
Greyston Bakery in Yonkers, New York, produces thousands of pounds of brownies a day. But what's perhaps more interesting than the sweets made here are the people who make them. The bakery, which was founded by a Buddhist monk in 1982, has an unusual open hiring policy.
People walk through the front door, they put their name on a waiting list, and when we have a job available to them, we give it to them, no questions asked. We don't do any reference checks, we don't do any interviews. We bring them into an orientation, and from that point forward, they're given an opportunity to work. So essentially, we're not concerned with their background at all. We're only concerned with their productivity going forward.
This second chance is my first chance, and I'm not letting this go.
All the bakery's profits go to the Greyston Foundation, which provides childcare, housing, and other social services to Yonkers residents and bakery employees.
Hi, Joe. Welcome to the show, and really honored to have you here. Let me start with the question. We heard your story already at the Be for Good Leaders Summit in Rome, and we heard a lot of people being impressed by it. It's very clear your organization has a purpose. But how do you keep that purpose alive, actually?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, Anka. It's good to be with you, and also good to see Len and Marcello. So I'm glad to be with you guys this morning. This morning for us. Backing up a little bit to your question, keeping the purpose alive, it's relatively easy because it's who we are at Greyston. It wasn't really described in the video. That video is a little dated, by the way, too. But at Greyston, we obviously make the brownies for Ben & Jerry's Unilever Ice Cream. We make brownies for Whole Foods, which is a large grocery store chain here. We have a very robust e-commerce business that sells brownies all over. But as is said in the video, the real story, the real value that we bring to the table is the people who bake those brownies day in and day out to the tune of 40 to 50,000 pounds a day. We bring them in through our bakery apprentice program under a program called Open Hiring, which is essentially a no questions asked form of hiring. Folks just have to put their name on a list, and as we need people, if you are the next person on the list, you're hired. No questions asked, no background checks, as was stated. And that's what we've been doing for the last 41 years. Going to the earlier video, the why is, goes back to our founder, Bernie Glassman, who saw a business as we have here that could be leveraged, and it could be leveraged as a force for good. It can be leveraged as a way to give people hope, particularly those who have one or more barriers to employment. So when you think about barriers, think a refugee, think someone who's been involved in the criminal justice system. Think of someone who has, in our case, English as a second language, or a single parent, but for whatever reason, they've been excluded from employment. They have the skills, they have the ability, they have the desire and the resolve to work, but because of biases that are kind of built into our system here and really around the world, they don't have those employment opportunities. And through Greyston and others, I know Natura is on here, the Body Shop and others are doing open hiring and inclusive hiring, really around the world, and they're unlocking, and that is our purpose, unlocking human potential through inclusive employment. That's who we are, and that's who we've been for the last 41 years, and we're going to be that for the next 50 years. That it's what we do, it's why we're here. As we say, we don't hire people to bake brownies, we bake brownies to hire people. The focus is on employment and employing those with barriers to employment.
Wow, impressive. And very easy to keep your purpose alive if you have it that dominantly visible, I can imagine. Yeah.
I'm going to jump in as a kind of sidekick.
Great.
And Joe, I have a question. I was very lucky that actually I just finished my MBA when I met Bernie Glassman. 30 years ago, and of course that was a time with Ben Cohen, Anita Roddick. So if we take these three people, Ben, Anita, and Bernie, they had an extended view of what an enterprise is. In fact, actually, their main motive was not profit-making, but it was something much bigger than that. So I think on the one hand, we're becoming a bit reductionistic. We kind of lost the wider vision of business. But my question is more about communication. I think in these cases, so Body Shop, Anita Roddick, Ben J, Ben Cohen, Bernie Glassman, Greyston, you have been masters in actually talking about what you're doing, in sharing it with the world. And I have often meet business leaders, particularly some family businesses, but they have a very strong purpose, but they're not very good at articulating it and actually embedding the enterprise, because it has to be actually felt by everyone in the company, not just the CEO or the founder. So how have you been communicating all this so that everyone is inspired to hear your story?
It's relatively easy. I know the concept is rather revolutionary when you think about, classically trained HR representative who you're going to tell them they don't have to interview, they don't have to do background checks. But for us, it's relatively easy because there is a strong business case for it. Yes, there's clearly the social piece of it is pretty well laid out because of the people that we're bringing in, people who are on the sidelines, people who are unemployed, people who are on public assistance, whatever, it might be justice involved. We're bringing those folks into the employment system. But as we've seen in our own organization, keep in mind, we're making brownies for Ben & Jerry's Unilever, Whole Foods. These are marquee companies that have high standards of quality, high standards of their product and who they work with. And we're bringing them in and we're using folks that have been excluded, and they're doing amazing work, and they've been doing it for the last 41 years. We have a great partnership with the Body Shop, who has now been using open hiring, and they call it inclusive hiring, for the last 4 years. And they've seen, and this is the business case I'm getting to, Marcello, a reduction in their turnover, meaning the people that leave the organization, they're keeping people in because they're getting loyal, dedicated individuals. Productivity is going up because people are proud to work there because you've given them an opportunity when no one else could give them that opportunity. You have people that have been within the organization and seeing, this type of a revolutionary concept being implemented, they feel more proud of their organization. Like, I'm happy to be working here. Look at what my company is doing. So from an employee engagement, from keeping good people, from getting people off the sidelines and continuing to run your business profitably, that is a very strong business as well as social case that we are more than happy to take to it, really any business leader around the world. And keep in mind, it's very courageous, it's very bold, but it's also very impactful at the same time.
Does it, Joe, also help you to sell the products that you make? Do you think the general audience that goes to your clients, do they care for the way that the product is made, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And let's keep in mind, I don't know if you've ever had a Greyston brownie or tried them in Ben & Jerry's ice cream. It is a very good product. You can ask my son, who eats them, by the boxes if you let him. It's a very good product. But yes, people, when they hear that it's not just a brownie, and that's actually one of our taglines, it's more than a job, it's more than a brownie. When they hear the story, and again, going back to the earlier video, when they hear the why of how this company came about and who we employ and the impact that it has. This is real business, social, and economic development all happening through the sale of a brownie. Think about it. So when people understand that, they are more than happy to purchase it. They're more than happy to be affiliated with that product if they're an employee, but they want to see their dollars being invested in not just their own pleasure, which is having a brownie, but they're actually making a contribution to the economy here in Yonkers, New York, but they're making a contribution to the economy where the body shop is operating or where some of our other inclusive hiring partners are operating. Their dollar is doing more than just meeting their service need or a product need. It's actually contributing socially.
Before I ask you, Anki, to have another question, I would like to remind you in the audience that if you have a question to Joe or you want to make a remark to add to this discussion, please do so, because I have a beautiful little screen here in the table that you cannot see, where I can read your questions and I can pass them on to any of us here. So, Anki.
Yeah. Joe, I have a question about you, one of the most impactful leaders. There's a lot of leaders in listening to this conversation. Yeah. What is the achievement that you are most proud of in here in Greyston?
I don't know if this will answer your question or not. It's not really about me. Again, it really goes back to the people that we hire. I'm most proud of them. Because they have demonstrated resiliency, they have demonstrated the power of human potential when it can be untapped. They have shown how they can overcome tremendous odds. I mean, literally hundreds of stories that I could give about how people have really transformed their lives. If I walked out here right now, I could go to our receptionist who used to work at our bakery, who went through some of our programs at our nonprofit. He would tell you about how Greyston has helped him. I could talk to one of our supervisors, and she would tell you what Greyston has meant to her family and her now 6 kids. I could talk to one of our other supervisors who could say what it's meant to his daughters, and the fact that he now owns a home and he has bank accounts and he has all these other financial products that he probably would have never had if not for Greyston. What I'm most proud of is that our employees and the success that and what success means for them, and how it's been demonstrated in their lives. That's what I'm most proud of.
Are they then also your strongest ally in spreading the word?
It's great to be the president and CEO, but I always say the best ambassadors are the folks who are employed at Greyston Bakery or the folks that go through the Greyston Foundation nonprofit programs. When they tell you their story, and I encourage folks to Google, Wide Open Dreams, Greyston Wide Open Dreams. You'll hear stories from some of our employees talking about what Greyston has meant to them. And it's just so impactful when you hear it straight from them. And I would say, yes, they are definitely one of our, really the key ambassador for this organization.
Yes, I understand.
Beautiful. Any sidekick, Marcello?
The sidekick is follow on from the question earlier. How can we help other businesses and really unearth their purpose? Because I think that many businesses do have a purpose, but it's not very well communicated, and the customer doesn't know. And I think particularly, I remember, Ben & Jerry used to put on the ice cream tubs the peace campaign, 30 years ago. So millions of people would see something beyond a good ice cream. So what is your recipe for helping other companies to actually, communicate much better what their real purpose is?
Yeah, it's interesting you say recipe, so pardon the pun on that one. But I would say it really, you have to go back to why you're here, right? And really communicate your existence. Are you here to just make bicycle seats or brownies or ice cream, or is there a broader vision that you have for your organization? I'm a conscious capitalist. I see profit and purpose are hand in hand. I think they're part of the same coin. It's not an either or for me. But if you could tie your business, whether it's a service or a product, to the broader mission of your organization, the broader impact that your organization has on your environment that you're in, or the environment in general, that's where it starts. It really has to start with, why are you in existence, and what is that broader purpose beyond the product and service? If you can communicate that in a very simple way, people will gravitate towards you, and it'll be obvious.
Thank you.
Yeah, Joe, we have a large amount of questions coming from the audience, which is great, which is not surprising if I see your enthusiasm in what you say, everything what you say. So let's quickly try to run through some of them, Joe. Femke is asking, what are the main challenges that you face now?
Yeah, sometimes people ask that in the context of open hiring, and I would say our challenges are no different than any other manufacturing entity that they have, whether it's, just making sure people showing up on time, being in a competitive marketplace. We are selling a product, so there's pricing challenges, there's supply chain challenges. Yeah. I would say the challenge from an open hiring communication to a broader business audience, that's really the biggest challenge, getting folks to think differently, getting folks to think beyond how we've always done things. And as I've said many times before, the definition of insanity is, continue to do the same thing, but, expect a different result. And we're not seeing that with our current hiring environment. We still have people on the sidelines. I think 92% of the small businesses here in the United States are still looking for people. And we're saying they're there. It's just a matter of how you're hiring and where are you looking to hire. If you can change that mindset, we could really unlock a lot of economic development and human potential, not just in where I am in the United States, but really around the globe.
Yeah, and I think this taps in really well to the next question of Elsie, because you were talking about supporting other organizations in this open hiring. You were talking about the Body Shop. Is this something you actually do? Is this a service you give, supporting other organizations?
Yeah, but what most folks may not know, Greyston, and I think it was covered in the video a little bit, but you may not have caught it. Greyston Bakery is a for-profit benefit corporation, certified benefit corporation. So we focus on the triple bottom line of people, planet, profit. But it is owned by a nonprofit, which I'm over as well, Greyston Foundation. Part of our mission is to leverage the bakery as our incubator of open hiring, take the lessons learned, take some of the challenges that we face, and really share it with other businesses that want to do what we do, whether it's exactly like we do it, a la the Body Shop, but maybe in some form want to get rid of barriers to employment. We want to walk you through that process and walk alongside you and just show you how it can be done, how you can partner with other organizations to provide wraparound support, social services support. Really, at the end of the day, it's just good HR. How can we support our employees with learning and development? How can we support them and making sure that they feel safe, making sure they know they have career pathways within our organizations? That's what we consider to be inclusive employment. Open hiring is just the appetizer, if you will, but it's really how do you keep people within your organization? And we believe it is all those supports and really employee benefits that we offer to our employees that keeps them involved, gives them promotional opportunities, and hopefully gives them a long career trajectory to stay at Greyston, or ideally, they could go to other organizations and be a contributor, but we want to give them that start.
Yeah. Well, then what is Ludo in our audience is asking a question that has more to do with finance, and not for your financials maybe, but the financial world. So how can we change, I don't know if you have an idea about it, how can we change the world of finance into this direction? And would you have specific KPIs for that maybe, Joe?
Yeah, I kind of touched on it earlier. I mean, it's not just finance. I mean, I just think it's the business in general. Go to the data. Just look at the data and look at the ROI for what inclusive employment is doing. Increase in productivity. What business does not want that? Keeping employees and retaining employees. In the United States, it costs anywhere from $4,100 to $4,500 to hire someone. That gets eliminated when you have open hiring, where you can now reallocate those resources and time, financial resources, to keeping people within your organization versus keeping them out. You're bringing in diverse people, whether it's people of color or women that could be your future managers, directors, and CEOs of your organization. It creates a great pipeline. And I would say also, just again, the employee engagement piece, the trust in the organization increases when you have a program like open hiring within your organization. So all of those KPIs get to what us, and I come from finance as well, and as well as CPG, that gives you a nice ROI when you can have those positive contributions being brought to the table simply because you rethought and had a mind shift in your hiring practices.
Yeah, you gave some very intelligent KPIs, Joe, and gave us ook the advantages towards the financial world. So with that, we have several more questions, but we have to run on with the program as we have it. So thank you that you could make it, Joe, and in time. And we were very happy to have you here, as always. I hope to see you also on our summit that we have again next year in Amsterdam. So for now, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you for having me. Always enjoy being with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it is always inspiring, as Joe, to have leaders here in our community that share their vision and their business model to all of us. And that is what we also want to provide as Be for Good leaders, more opportunities for our community together to interact with each other, to do business together. And that is why we have created a cooperative. And we want to talk to you about that. But before we do that, we first go to Francine in Monterrey, who is standing ready with a person that she's going to interview for all of us. So Francine, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. As you see, it's a bit loud in Mexico, which is an amazing country. But I'm here with a very special leader that is super connected with everything that Joe just said. I'm here with Rodrigo Santini. Rodrigo was the head of Ben & Jerry's in Brazil, and now he's leading the bee movement in the country. And he's also on a board of Greenpeace and several organizations. And I can tell, because I know him quite well, he's an activist. So, Rodrigo, today, the theme of this dialogue series is about corporate activism. In your view, is it possible to combine activism and corporation?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for this moment to be here with you, Francine, and with Be for Good Leaders. I think that definitely it is not a matter of if it's possible, but how we can make it. I mean, in a world that is so polarized, where we have so many issues to be discussed, it's not just a role of the government to make this a better place for everyone. Companies that have to do something, that have to have clear actions about that, government and civil society all together. The thing is how you do that, who you do this with, and why you do this. So firstly, why are you doing that? This has to be something authentic. It has to be something that has to do with the reality of the place where you are. So you have to think about how you can do this. And then when you think of the how, you have to involve the company in doing that. It's not just a marketing thing. It has to be, for example, be done with, for example, government relations, Compliance has to be on the table, deciding this stuff as well. So more people have to be on the table, but definitely who you're doing this with. And then we're talking about the civil society. So people in the society, they understand what's going on. They understand about things about, I don't know, related to social justice or climate justice. So you have to hear these guys, and you have to understand that the role of a company is the role of a company. It's not the role of the civil society or the government. So you have to understand what are the tools that you have on the table to offer and to contribute with these causes. But the thing is, if you understand why you're doing this, how you are doing this, I mean, involving everyone that is needed in the company and who you're doing this with, then we can think of a strategy about how we can make a change in this society using all these tools and understanding the role that we have. But definitely in 2023, understanding and thinking that this is a role of the government or just the civil society is just something that is back in the 80s. We have to understand that protecting the society is everyone's role.
Yeah, and we used to say that business can be a force for good. But on the other hand, I have two questions for you. Any company can embrace any social cause, in your opinion, and what are the main challenges to doing so?
I think that the first thing is companies, they have to do something that have to do with their values. People have to understand exactly why the company is doing. Transparency is extremely important. And when we talk about transparency, we're talking about the values. So you have to know the values of this company. If you act for something that you have never talked about, or they have no people inside the company thinking about that, people are going to look at you and saying, look, this is not okay. I mean, I can understand that there's something here that is not conversating with this reality. So what you do inside the company, you can then express outside the company. I mean, this transparency is very important. And when we think about challenges regarding that, we are in Latin America. So we understand that sometimes the state is not present in many ways. So bringing the state to the table to discuss and somehow to push the state to act the way the state should act is very important. It's not possible to substitute the government. Sometimes we understand that companies, they have to do lots of things, and the consumers expect the company to act more than a company should be acting. This is extremely dangerous because the state has a very important role in terms of regulating, for example, the causes, or understanding with the civil society what are the best options for a company to be acting inside this ecosystem. So the company can bring, for example, pilot projects, for example, for something, but can never substitute, for example, what the government is doing, which is regulating or defining how a society can express yourselves. This can be very dangerous because we never know what is behind, for example, the interests of a company if it's not that transparent, as I said at the beginning. So having this transparency, having this state with you on the table, and understanding the limits of your role, for example, in Latin America is very important because many companies sometimes they are more powerful than many of the states that we have. And this can be very dangerous if we don't have this transparency and if we don't have everyone, all the stakeholders sitting on the same table.
Managing stakeholders.
Exactly.
It's I think, one of the key issues when we talk about corporate activism. And you mentioned about Latin America. What are the main challenges for a company, and how the companies should address the main issues that we have as a society here?
Firstly, I think that the companies, they have to understand that they are not just selling products. Companies, they cannot sell products anymore, just sell services, but they have to bring solutions to society. How can we buy products, for example, again, in 2023, that is just like a product that is not bringing a solution for a world that we have. So how are you bringing solutions to the table with what you are offering to the society, your product or your services? And I'm not just talking about the product or service that you have, but how you do this. So, and the how, when you think of this, you have to think of the stakeholders you have on the table. So who are you listening to? Are you bringing everyone to the table, as I just said? When you think of Latin America, again, I mean, we have these many issues of social justice, climate justice, and not having that on the table is extremely complicated because it's part of the reality. So bringing these issues and understanding that this is a reality that we have to discuss, again, is very important. So I think that transparency, having all the stakeholders, understanding that social justice and climate justice is something that your services products have to be resolving, for example, and bringing the government for the discussion and not being far from that is extremely important for us to set up a strategy.
Yeah, perfect. And just to finalize, you are a great leader and an important leader of the B Corp movement. And I know that here we have a lot of B Corp leaders as well. How do you feel it's the role of the B Corps in everything that you just said?
Inspire, first one, and set the way. When I say, for example, that impact, because we're talking about impact here, is the way for us to think about our future. We have to show the tools. How can we do this? Because for many years we listened that it was not possible. This was not our role. My role was just like to set up a plan for the shareholders. We are changing this now. So how can we do this? So inspiration, it's possible to do that. Secondly, how can we achieve this, in fact, and how can we make a plan? So bringing the right tools to the table to offer these guys a solution. Inspiration is nice, but we have to have action. So inspiration and action is great. And I've been here, for example, at this moment with so many companies, almost 1,000 people gathered here in Mexico. It's just about that. It's possible to be doing that. And we have the right tools on the table to make this future happen.
And actually, the B Corps are already showing that. We see so many great examples.
Francine, can we?
Yes.
Yeah, we have two questions also from here to Rodrigo, if that is okay with you. So maybe, Marcello, you can start.
Rodrigo, very nice to see you, to meet you here. The question is, my experience is, I have not seen one single government that really understands the power of companies becoming social actors. Government think, oh, we can tax the company, we can get their money, and we can use the money ourselves. So now that Brazil, as the next 2 years, is hosting global meetings, do you think your government will give companies a bigger role in showing and collectively doing much more for society? What do you think?
I think that this is something that is starting to happen now. I think that governments were not used to that either. I think that as other people in society, people used to think that, okay, companies are just thinking about their shareholders and civil society is doing what they have to do. But when we look at the civil society nowadays, for example, they are not so strong in many ways. They are not getting financial support. We have a polarized world, so they have been attacked. And then the companies at this moment, they have a central role. Governments in general, they do not realize that, but now sometimes they have no options or no people to work with. So companies at this moment start to be a focus for these governments. Who are we going to work with? And then they start to be an option. But I do agree with you. This is something new still for some of the governments that we have in the world. And in Brazil, we are opening the doors to have such discussions for the next 2 years.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rodrigo, sorry that I pronounced your name wrongly. And also thank you, Francine. It's very exciting to have a reporter that is flying all over the world. We will not have that many times more, but it is nice to see you there, Francine and Rodrigo. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and have a great event there.
Thank you.
What I wanted to introduce you earlier is that we are working on a cooperative in order to collaborate, to do things together. And that is why we have built up the cooperative. And the cooperative has a platform. And on the platform that is slowly but certainly being filled with hundreds and then thousands of entrepreneurs, we also invite you to join on the platform. And we have our chief storyteller, as we call him, Daniel, here. And Daniel is going to take us with him into the platform to show what this is actually all about, Daniel.
Indeed. I mean, don't you just dream that you could get in touch with Rodrigo without having to wait for the next summit back in Amsterdam? Don't you dream that you could get in touch with Francine and connect? That's exactly what this platform is about. Some of you have already joined, some not. So just in case, if somebody has not joined yet, you just click on this community leadership link. And then you will see, I will share my screen now with you. You will see this screen coming up. And here on the screen, you just choose the plan. As simple as that. Good news, it's free, just for you, for the first group. It's not been launched yet. It's just for this first intimate group. You just access there. And after you've accessed, you just put in a very basic first name, last name, email, and passwords. You create an account. You will see 3 questions just to see why you're joining the platform. You don't need to reply to them now. You just put a dot. And that's how you access the platform. We will give you permission as soon as we receive this. If you've accessed before, then all you have to do is just to click on the right, sign in. And as you sign in, you'll be directly taken into the platform. And this is just a very simple way to access the platform. And now what you want to do is to actually be in the platform and meet these people. So this is the page that you will find, as you can see, very colorful. And I think it starts with the people. And if you click on this discovery on the left-hand side, you can see a number of people. What is very useful, you can see members that are closest to you. So if you're in a city and you see people close to you, you can immediately get in touch with them and find out that maybe there's other people. I'm now in Valencia. You can see that other people in Valencia close to you that are doing something or at an event and so forth, or in your city. So very useful. You can see there's a green dot here. Svetlana is online. So she's live, you're live. So what you can double click there and you can either start a chat with her and say, hi, I have this business opportunity. Why don't we join? Why don't we talk? You can follow her. There's different ways in which you can very practically connect when you want, at your time, without any rush to this kind of interaction. And here you can see more members and more people you can connect with. Now, if you're wondering, when will the next dialogue be happening? When is the winter gathering happening? When are events happening? Thank God, all in one place. You can see the event is now live. And you can see that here. You could actually join it if you were on the platform. You can see and join the events, the key events that the Be for Good Leaders is organizing. So everything in one place and very easy. And I'm going to show you just one more of the many functionalities. I repeat, we just have not officially launched. We're opening to a few friends like yourself. The plan is that between now and December, we will invite always a specific group of people. And it's not public, it's not for everybody. And we will get to about 3,000 people by December, and then many more thousands. So imagine a trusted community with whom you can make things happen. You can build, you can share information. There's one very basic thing, which is asking for help. You ask some question to Joseph, you had some other question from Rodrigo. If you see here, create, you can actually go there and go to the homepage and then have a quick post and have this very magical hashtag, which is hashtag Ask Be for Good Leaders, Ask BFGL. So does anyone know? And then you can ask a question of whatever kind. So we will daily monitor this. So this trusted, safe, close community just for us, Be for Good Leaders. This is where you can ask questions and get the help that you need at your own given time. As you can see, people have already started, Wayne, Marcello, Leen. So there's already a number of posts happening. So this is where you can find information and go forward. Very last thing, I click on the left, I go back to discovery, and it's okay, they haven't finished the changes. And you can see here there's a number of spaces. And one of them is, for example, the times. So we have a newsletter that condenses the intelligence that you offer us. Every 2-3 months, one goes out. The next edition will be in December. Instead of us collecting the intelligence, you go to this space, Be for Good Leaders Times, and these are the questions. We would love to hear from you. The next topic is leadership. Can you show us some posts from leaders that you think on leadership are very useful? Are there any interviews with leaders that you think we should underline? How to implement good leadership? Who should we follow? So here on the back, you see Marjolaine has already offered something. This is where you can co-create the next edition of the Be for Good Leaders Times. Many more functions. I do not want to give you too much information, but this is your space, safe space, where to meet other members, connect with members, ask for help, start to share and collect intelligence, and allow us to really accelerate our aims. Thank you very much, and I pass back to the studio.
Daniel, I have a question. Can anyone start like an email thread to have a conversation that is, goes, because one of the powers is us working together. So can you do that?
Absolutely, yes. There's groups on the left. There's groups that you can go to, And from there, you can actually have a live interaction. So if there's 3, 4, 5 of you online, you click on live, and all of a sudden you can actually talk to other people and have a live. So you don't need to click on Zoom or can you send me a Zoom link? You can live and there have a conversation with people with that area. We've got a stewards area. We've got areas for specific concepts and topics. And we also have an area, for example, for the winter gathering. So what we aim to do prior to the winter gathering, prior to the summits, this area will be open and we can shape these areas. So we don't just arrive cold in Amsterdam or Nijrode. We actually are able to have a learning experience on the run up to the event. This really amplifies the power of the events and allows us to have a better interaction going forward. We will keep using it and inform you, but this was just a quick 5 minutes introduction to how you can use and connect through this platform.
Yeah, the biggest question, Daniel, that we have heard over the past 10 years in working and building the community of B Corps, benefit corporations, one of the biggest questions is, where can I find people to speak to? Where can I find answers to my questions? It is very difficult because who can I trust? You know, if I want to do business in another country, who can I trust? Who can I work with? And Marcello, maybe you can give 1 or 2 examples of what has happened after the summit in people doing businesses, because there are stuff that happened after the summit because of these connections.
Well, I mean, absolutely. The one that happened like a month after the summit, a company called Good Wings, which is a B Corp in Denmark, decarbonizing travel, got €1.5 million investment from investors who were actually at the summit. About a month and a half ago, we heard that a big company that came to the summit was so inspired they decided to create a €100 million impact fund, which will be launched in the next few months. And the CEO of that company wants to use it as an example to get other companies to also create impact funds. So these are 2, and every day, you know, we hear new stories. Yesterday, I was with Davide Bollati, CEO of Davines, at lunch here in Amsterdam, and he said he has been now connected with L'Occitane. L'Occitane became a B Corp 3 weeks ago. It's €2.5 billion company. And suddenly they are trying to do business together. And you know, you don't know what's going to happen, but hey, this is a company, Davines is about 300 million and L'Occitane is 3 billion. They probably can do lots of things together. So these are just 3 examples that I've seen. And together with our friends of Nativa, we are creating a legacy report to actually go out and discover all the things that are going on, et cetera, et cetera. And actually, Anke,
exactly.
To Anke, what happened to you?
Well, there's a few things that happened after the summit. One of the things is a cooperation we announced last week with one of the Be for Good partners called Bain Consulting. And we're going to work together to build more companies, not only B Corps, but B champions. So taking B Corp to the next level. So that is one thing. And thanks to being on stage, I was invited to speak in a network together with Marcello and Paul Polman to see how we can together transition also the larger corporates to become a B Corp. So not only, it's really great to see that not only the summit will be there or the live gatherings, but a platform like this could bring it in between and you could stimulate even more of those conversations. So I understood it was going live up until December?
Yeah, well, it is actually live, but it is, as Daniel says, for a small group. I think over the coming week, within now and a week, we'll have a couple of 100 people on it. And at winter gathering at Nijrode, I think we'll have maybe 2,000. And by the end of the year, we will reach 3,000 to 5,000 people on it. And that is, it's growing extremely fast. And it is because there are many people that want to be on it.
Yeah,
but I mean, I think we need to say, because many of you came to the summit, at the summit we received 10,000 nominations. So people like C. Herman Mulder, Herman, you said you're going to bring 50 people, and so on and so forth. So what Leen says is that it's actually a lot of work to individually invite each one of you to join the platform. And this is what we've been doing. And so now we have a 10,000 nomination. Plus, of course, we have around 25, 26,000 people who we've selected in the last 2 or 3 years. So we do this one by one. So it just takes some time. But the plan is by December to get to a few thousand members. And everyone has said yes. Nobody has said no, so we actually have a very good turnout.
So you can see the enthusiasm. Maybe we just witnessed the birth of the new regenerative economy that we're trying to build. But I would like to step onwards to our next theme, Anki.
Yes, and this is actually the theme that was also the header of the dialogue series. We're going to talk about corporate activism. We already had some great conversations from Mexico. And why corporate activism? In the summit, there's always 6 tracks that have topics that really are close to the heart of the members of this community. And one of these topics this next summit will be corporate activism. And the other dialogue series will also touch upon the other topics. And what corporate activism actually is, we will look at in a short video as an introduction.
I am much more of a natural rule follower than a rebel. But this scary climate science has made me start to question whether our current rules are really cutting it. It's not just possible to be a business activist. Right now, it's needed.
It's easy to say you're in favor of some noble cause. And look, if you're a CEO, it also tends to be good for business. But actually following through on those principles usually comes with sacrifices. And it's not clear how many people are really willing to make them. Are American businesses ready to leave money on the table to stand by their beliefs? Are American consumers willing to pay more or endure more inconvenience to stand by theirs? Maybe businesses should only make pledges they can actually follow through on. Maybe consumers should be a little more skeptical of slick corporate marketing.
2/3 of Generation Z consumers say corporate and brand reactions to Black Lives Matter will permanently affect their purchasing habits. Getting it right matters. It's one of the reasons why Ben & Jerry's approach stands out so much. The company has long spoken out on issues since founders Ben Cohen and Jared Greenfield started the creamery in 1978.
We are the ones that can make a difference. Standing together.
We hear your voice.
Standing together.
We won't drown you out. We won't tell you
that you cannot be.
So tomorrow, like yesterday,
and like today,
be seen,
be heard, and let's make real change.
We're going to the Shell building on the South Bank because we wish to persuade Shell to stop their operations in the Arctic. It says Greenpeace, it's got the rainbow colours on it still. It says free the Arctic 30.
Before I introduce the 2 speakers of this part of the session, just a reminder to the crowd, ask your questions in the chat. We will get back to them later and we can have a good conversation all together. But for now, welcome. Let's, ladies first, I can say that. Charmian, love. We heard a lot about you. We already saw you. You're the Global Director of Advocacy at Natura & Co. You were the founder of B-Lab UK and I think an entrepreneur in residence at Side Business School at Oxford. Really happy to have you here. And we have Raki Ap, who is from Papua New Guinea. Born there, but is here because he's representing Extinction Rebellion. And most of you know Extinction Rebellion, I think. It's an activist organization. And you're fighting for climate justice. So welcome both. An honor to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So, Char, question for you. Can I say Char or should I say Charmian?
Just call me Shar. That is fine.
Okay. That's
Thanks for asking them.
Marcello did, so that's how I automatically followed his lead. You're a corporate activist yourself. And how is it actually? How is it possible to combine business and leadership with activism?
Well, it's such a good question. And I've been giving some thought to it today, knowing that might be one of the themes that comes up in the conversation. And I think actually the place I'd love to start in responding to it is to actually think about what we mean when we say activist. Yes. Because I feel like that's a word that's used a lot. And actually when words are used often, I think it can be really helpful just to ground what we mean by these words. And so because there are lots of different definitions, let me just share mine. And that hopefully can be some grounding for the conversation we can continue to have. And I'm super excited from hearing from Raki here on his experience and whether or not this definition aligns with how he approaches activism. But it was actually from a friend of mine at Extinction Rebellion when I was asking about definitions. And I was sort of saying this word activist and what does it mean? And she had this great way of reflecting on it. She said, being an activist is about really recognizing your edge. And that edge could be the things that just, make you uncomfortable. But it's that edge. And she said it's about really recognizing it and seeing it and being able to walk right up to it and then go beyond it. And the reason why I love that definition is because to me that speaks to the relativity of activism, because everyone's edge is going to be a little bit different. But the point is that we all need to stretch further. And so I think that's kind of the place I'd start when thinking about how do we approach being in business and activism, is just to start thinking about no matter who we are and where we are, we do have an edge. And that's the ambition we need to find, is the energy and the courage to go to that edge and go beyond it. I'm happy to talk a little bit more about what that looks like in practice. But I actually be really curious from Raki if that definition sort of aligns with your experience in activism.
And maybe Char, when you take that question, Raki, maybe you can combine that with a question that I have, because you said, Anki, that we all know Extinction Rebellion, but I wonder if that is true. I think people have an idea about Extinction Rebellion, and maybe quite often the wrong idea. And so maybe you can take that question from Char and combine it a little bit with your definition also of what Extinction Rebellion is.
Absolutely, yeah. First of all, Leen, Marcel and Anki, thank you for having me as well. And Char, for your amazing input. I think, yes, I really recognize what you have highlighted there. I think it's about recognizing the edges in your company and, the uncertainties as well when you take a different stance in a corporation, because this is a norm in every corporation that you don't want to go against, right? Because it creates some feelings, and your colleagues can look strange to you, and it can also bring you in a difficult situation. So yes, it takes courage to take a different stance, whether it is in a corporation or in your family or in whatever situation. It's against a extreme position, and it's something that is not normally, right? So yes, it's about taking this uncertainty and trying to change or better the situation because you believe in an ideal or a situation that is better for other people, to make it more inclusive, or as we've heard before. This takes a courageous attitude. So I think I'm going to leave it there. Char, thank you for sharing that. And then I'm going to jump into, if you allow me, to why Extinction Rebellion exists. I'm just one of the many spokespersons of Extinction Rebellion. For those who doesn't have heard about the movement, Extinction Rebellion is basically a activist movement. It started in the UK, I think in 2020, where they've occupied the bridges in London City to demand climate justice from the British government and from also, the fossil fuel companies, because they, at least the movement and those who participate in Extinction Rebellion, feel the urgency of the climate crisis. And just to highlight, I work as a civil servant in the Netherlands under the Ministry of Interior, so I'm a civil servant. Besides that, I'm also a father of 5 children. So the reason I become active within Extinction Rebellion, because Leen have mentioned it, or Anki, apologies, that my roots lies in Papua New Guinea. For those who doesn't know where it is, it's a big island right above Australia, the western half, the eastern half, and it's also the world's largest tropical island. So the reason I felt very connected to Extinction Rebellion is because they brought stories to at least to the mainstream media that I haven't heard before. And because for many people around the world, especially those who live in the global north, climate change is something that really is, you can't feel it, you can't see it, so it's not there, right? While the numbers of reports are doubling every year by UN scientists. But for the people in, for example, Pakistan, where 1/3 of the nation is underwater, for the small island nation states in the Pacific region and other parts of the world, whose graves are, disappearing under sea level, climate change is very much alive. It's there, and it's hurting their village. And so this is why I felt very committed to this movement who give climate change a voice. The voice for the communities who have been hit the hardest in the global south, particularly. So how I see activism personally is, I try to influence policy which is bad or causing harm to many people. And I try to influence that policy in a modest position I have as civil servant or as citizen. And the strong belief I have is just looking at the past. And today, labor rights, women voting rights, and many other rights, were brought to our society, not because those in power gave it to them, ending slavery or ending apartheid, it is because people who were oppressed were standing up and organized themselves. This is how we have changed history.
Raki, thank you. But our Marcello has a really important question.
So I would like to say hello to my friend Char, and I have a question. So Natura and Avon actually employ millions of women who are the salesperson for the products. And for me, this is this is how you create a strategy built on corporate activism. Can you share with us a little bit, what does it mean to have you are actually responsible for the lives of millions of women in Brazil, in the United States, and so forth. Can you say something about that, please?
Yeah, no, I absolutely am so glad you picked that up because it is something that I think is really interesting about the Natura & Co. business model as it relates to Natura and Avon, is this community of women. And I think that, there's a lot of organizations that talk about, being a movement, but this community that are part of our sort of extended family, be they beauty consultants or representatives, they truly are a movement. They have deep relationship and connection in their local communities. And really importantly, they have trust. So I believe really in the power of people. And Marcello, you and I've had this conversation before about how, when we first talked about the B Corp movement, the framing of it is people, right? Using their power in business as a force for good. And sometimes we kind of shortcut this expression, it becomes business as a force for good. But really, it is essentially about people. And it's about the decisions, both the big macro, the smaller decisions every day that people make that actually make a business a force for good or not, or somewhere in between. But again, yes, that community of women that are a part of our sort of family are a really powerful force and a powerful movement. Maybe in that spirit, and I don't want to jump the gun on any questions that might be coming, but I do want to take a moment to reflect on a few things because it didn't necessarily flow through on my first question, which was about activism in business. And I feel like really called to just share a few things that have been really important for my own journey in this space. And it is an ongoing journey. Let's just be clear, right? This is about learning and continuous improvement, which is clearly a principle that we are all moved by. But when it really does come to exploring the space of business activism, again, it comes back down to the people. And one of the things that's been really important for us on our journey is to really make sure that in locking this into the people, we make sure that people have a sense of knowing what their power is. And that's a really critical first step. So really getting the agency that we all have and that power. And in relation to the definition of activism, knowing that there is sort of a relativity to it, and there's lots of different ways to become an activist, what I would really encourage anyone who's on this call or who's interested in this topic to check out this really short quiz that's done by an amazing organization called Force of Nature. And it just has you go through a couple of questions. And at the end of it, it gives you what is your change maker style. And it shows that there is so many different ways to be an activist. Maybe you are the person on the front lines marching. Maybe you're someone coordinating. Maybe you're someone who's like taking a stand in a meeting, maybe where you wouldn't otherwise. But this is a great tool that helps you sort of reflect on who you are and then shares with you back sort of some of the models of activism and some of the activists you might want to follow based on the type of activist you are. So know your power, know what kind of activism sort of calls to you, know the issues. And I think Rodrigo brought this up really well, and it was really important. So it has to be authentic. You have to really make sure you understand what those issues are and build in systems to be continuously improving, continuously learning.
Maybe because you hit really an important spot here, I think, Char, what I saw at the demonstrations here in the Netherlands of Extinction Rebellion is that sometimes they went to a demonstration with a grandmother, a mother, and a grandchild. And the three of them were activists. And that is impressive. That is impressive to an audience. And that is, if you don't mind me asking a short question to Raki, does that now, are you really, because you say, Char, it's about people. And I completely agree with that. It's people, it's not companies, it's not Shell, it is a person that runs the company. So do you believe, Raki, that you are able, when you do protest, that you're able to touch the people who make those decisions and not the companies, but the company is basically nothing?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. I think, yes, it's always about people who are willing to make a different choice. So whether you are an activist or a civil servant or a CEO, yes, everybody can make the decision that the society or the world desperately need. And the protests on the A12 in the Netherlands have shown that, we had 3 different generations standing on the street demanding change from the government. And we have succeeded. Some weeks ago, we have the parliament adopted the motion, starting to, downsize, for example, the fossil fuel subsidies. But I think looking back at history, I think Shah is absolutely right. And we need more change makers. And I think corporations can explicitly play this catalyst role in our societies today. And everybody can make a big difference. But I think a CEO of a corporation has a bigger platform, bigger network, and a bigger voice to become an ally for Extinction Rebellion or other movements and social movements who desperately need a voice or platform. So I think everybody can share a story, and these stories can really inspire others to become change makers and leaders.
That sounds really.
Can I jump?
Yeah, of course. You're both very passionate. It's great to hear. I would like to go a little bit further onto this question, and probably you will get to that too. So you were talking about corporate leaders or business leaders to take a step. That is quite a challenge because there's also profitability targets or employment targets, etc. You both, it's not only about you personally, but as a business leader, do you have an advice? How can you combine them? Both of you, actually. Very keen to hear.
I feel like we probably are both getting ready to jump in because we both have.
Raki, you go first. Oh, Char, you go first.
Okay, I've got sort of 3 really sort of not simple, because none of this is simple, but 3 things that have been interesting for us within Natura & Co. And I'd say this is from a holding company perspective. So number 1 is just to create some space for conversations with people inside the business. And we're trying to do that by having learning sessions. We actually call them Ask Me Anything. And they're designed so that you don't feel like you have to have, pre-reads done or a bunch of things, but it's just really informal, casual ways for our entire team, like from different parts of the functions across our business, to engage in this. So that's how we help build a culture of trying to explore some of these issues. And we have had climate activists as part of that session and had really interesting dialogues with people from across, as I say, across different teams. So number 1 is sort of, again, that creating the spaces for learning. The other thing is to create spaces for people to express themselves, right? So one of the things we did in our office opening a few weeks ago is we actually had art blocks, and we encouraged people to bring in shirts or suit jackets. And it's one of the things that's been a really important part of my journey as a business activist, is almost have like something to signal. So this is a suit jacket I have. I'm wearing it because we're all talking to business. But actually, I'm going to stand up and see if it works. Actually, on the back of it, I have a stamp of a butterfly. And so we've kind of done that sort of thing within our sort of little team structure where we're letting people sort of find ways to express themselves and put stamps on pieces of clothing. So yeah, finding ways to learn, finding ways to express themselves, and also finding ways to make sure we celebrate the joy of being together, because I think that's another really important part of activism. It's not being out doing it alone, especially if you're in business. You've got a built-in sort of community of colleagues you can be with. So one of the things we also did is we had a few people that went out to the Queue for Climate that happened in London in September. And this is the point I was going to jump in on, actually, Raki, because you were talking about the intergenerational connection of people at protests. This was a very different kind of protest that happened in London, where people from business were invited to come wearing their suits. And literally there was like a whole line from St. Paul, those of you who know London, St. Paul's, which is in sort of the financial capital of the city, all the way to the Tate Modern, and all across the Millennium Village. There were business people there representing themselves and saying, these are important issues to us. So it was a little bit different than your traditional protest style, but it was people in business showing up to take a stand. So those are the kinds of things.
Chuck, can you show the butterfly again? Because the camera was just switching off when you showed it.
Okay.
And everybody wants to see the butterfly. And then we go to...
rather than trying to turn around, why don't I just sort of hold it up? So This is why this is my ultimate power suit. You know, in business, you've got like the power suits. And I'm like, this is the suit that reminds me of my power as a business activist, because I can have it look like a, more traditional suit on the front, but also make sure I have a little bit of my neon butterfly.
Activism juice. Raki, what about you?
Yeah, thank you. I was totally overwhelmed by the story of Shah. So what's the question once again?
The question was actually, you were talking about corporate leaders and that they could play a large role. There's leaders that are willing but are still worried about, what does this do to my business? Do you have tips?
Yeah, right. Got it. I think exactly. I think if they really realize what's ahead of us, they would change overnight. I just bring forward an article by New York Times that have wrote about the report from Swiss Re, which is one of the world's largest providers of insurance to other insurance companies, saying that by 2050, climate change can result in 23 trillion reduced annual global economic output. This is just one of those results. We talk about 10 million plus climate refugees, and many other crises about that will attack our societies, which will have impact on every businesses, especially in the global north.
There's no choice.
So there is no. If you really understand what's ahead of us, you would act, and you will act in such a way that your business will adapt to these challenges, and it can help communities in your cities and your annual results. So I would say yes, just prepare and stand on the good side of history. Not only for your business, but also for future and current generations.
Marcello.
Raki, I love it. I am very delighted to hear your words. I have a proposition. The proposition is, will you help us reach out to companies that you know, where the CEO, the leaders are not quite open enough, or they are afraid of being more activist, and then we create a group and we help them. We have an amazing community here. We are all here to help each other to actually achieve more, because I said it earlier, I think that many governments do not see companies as part of the social fabric. They see companies as an economic actor. We take tax, we take money, but there is a much wider view. So could you help us?
Marcello, I think you, Leen and Anki and the B Corp is basically doing what I'm hoping for. You are bringing leaders and corporations together to hear stories like Shar, mine, and other ones. And I think that's where the change is starting. I think as spokesperson of Extinction Rebellion, corporations, especially the bigger ones, are afraid to talk directly to us. But I think everybody can experience that my story isn't, that activist like they think it is. It's about telling the urgency in a story that reaches our heart. And I think your platform is one of the many that can bring these leaders and potential corporations together to get inspired by other corporate leaders. an activist like me or persons like Shar. I think that's where the magic happens. Let's keep spreading stories, bring people together. And I think that's the leadership will change, will follow.
Fantastic. We will do that. We will do that, Lena. We're going to create a group of companies. We start from those in the Netherlands. There could be international companies. Raki is going to help us. And then we have a real conversation with our government and other public leaders. How do we get companies to be more engaged and supported by our governments?
Maybe we're going to do that, Marcello. Maybe, Anke, you can have a final question for Raki and for Char.
And a short reminder to the crowd again. You can ask questions too to these two people. So feel free to put them in the chat. My question actually is about the younger generation, which you're both supporting in different ways. How, I know their most awareness is with the young. How can we support them in their journey further? In their journey to become an activist and grow?
Well, I'll jump in and just with two pieces. I've already mentioned Force of Nature. I think it's an extraordinary organization that is really working with young people. So backing organizations that have that focus and really being an intergenerational ally, understanding what that means really in practice, and finding organizations that can help guide you. It's certainly been a really important organization in my journey of understanding how to be that kind of intergenerational ally. The other thing I'll say is the Body Shop back at COP26 hosted a boardroom session called Boardroom 2030. That was a big B-Lab campaign that was happening around the time of COP26, and businesses all over were hosting board meetings as if it was in 2030. And one of the invitations in the design of those activations was to consider who's going to be on your board in 2030. And a range of businesses leaned into that invitation by inviting young people to be on that board as if it was in 2030. And then by doing so, really understanding what are the things that matter to young people that you can then start building into your strategy and your systems today. Some businesses have youth councils, youth collectives. There's one at the Body Shop. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. But I would say absolutely check out Force of Nature. They've got climate cafes that are going to be kicking off at the time of COP28. And check out sort of some of the Boardroom 2030 materials. I'm not sure if there's going to be more boardroom sessions coming up, but there's some great materials. And I think that's a really great way to again, bring the young people's voice right into the center of strategy today.
Yeah. And how can we bring them from the A12 to a corporate environment, Raki?
That's a great question. I think invite them. I've been invited on behalf of Extinction Rebellion by AFM, which is the financial authority in the Netherlands. By other corporations being invited to give a lecture. So I think the young activists from Extinction Rebellion, for example, are willing to have a talk with the leadership of corporations and other stakeholders. And I think having a conversation is a starting point for people to get familiar with other perspectives, with other voices, and bring the youngsters on board. They're absolutely willing. And if you look at Greta Thunberg, I think the most famous young climate activists have shown the power of the willingness of young generation today to really create change. So I think it's up to the leadership. And as proud, practical, educated guy, I have a very modest position. I've seen how much change I can create. So I will do the outreach to all of you to go to the forces of nature, to go to other movements, to embrace other stories and bring them in and collaborate and see the result of working together. I think that's where the magic happens.
Char and Raki, thank you both for your great enthusiasm here in talking with us. We brought in some of the questions that came from the audience, that came from you, but we are now coming to an end of this program again, of this Leaders Dialogue. But before we close, I really would like to share some next events and activities that we are doing in the Be for Good Leaders community. First of all, we have a community platform that Daniel showed to you, that Marcello and we spoke about, and that everybody is extremely enthusiastic about. Then we have our winter gathering on the 22nd of November at Nyenrode University. And at that winter gathering, we have our next Leaders Dialogue. So maybe in a few words, Marcello, you can say something about that winter gathering.
Well, the Winter Gathering, it's a beautiful place. It's a castle with a modern building. 60 years has existed. It's been the home of the largest multinationals in the Netherlands. So we are right inside the heart of corporate power. And the university itself is very interested in more B Corps, and B Corp stands for, so it's a perfect place to kind of, spread our message and share all the energy that all of you have inside a very corporate environment. So we love it. We'll be obviously also students, executive students, some faculty members. So it promises to be a very exciting day, and there'll be a final dinner for some of you. We're really looking forward because, we need to be together. And also, this is wonderful online, but that's a chance of being together in person. So looking forward to seeing all of you.
Yes, thank you, Marcello. No, we are very excited. And if any of you wants to join us there, please let us know. Then we have a summit again. As we had in Amsterdam, the Beurs van Berlage, we will have the next summit on 23 and 24 of May. Again in the Beurs van Berlage in Amsterdam. The good news is, and maybe also the bad news for some other people, is that many people have registered already. They have pre-registered. We haven't even started communicating very well what the program is going to be. So we have a couple of hundred people that have already pre-registered. And we are going to start letting all of you know within a month what the whole program is going to be. And that really has brought us to the end. I would like to thank everybody that was here. I would like to thank first of all you as an audience that was here. I would like to thank Joe Kenner, who was here. Of course, Char and Raki, who are here. Anki, who was here as a co-host. Francine from far away. Monterrey, Marcello as a sidekick, and the whole Be for Good Leaders team who helped us to make this all happen. But I should never ever forget the people who have this studio, because you have never been in the studio, you only see us here, but it is really one of the most nicest studios in the country. So we have to thank Frank van der Ven, who is a steward at Be for Good Leaders, and he donates this studio for us. Thank you again for being here, for listening to us, for asking questions in the discussion. We hope to see you again next time. And for now, be inspired.